The people you want to talk to, talking to us. I'm Nick.
And this is Ricky, welcoming you to another episode of the Buffalo Tribe podcast.
Alrighty, if you are tuning in again, welcome back to this episode of the Buffalo Tribe podcast. As always, I'm here because if I'm not here, no one else is able to record it. My name is Nick. I'm one of the coaches from the Buffalo Tribe, and I am, as always, joined by my offsider, Coach Ricky. So we have a special guest today. I'm going to let Ricky introduce him because I will do a terrible job of it. But I'll leave it to you, Ricky, and then we'll crack on.
Absolutely. So our guest today, he's a 25 times world champion, 25 times European champion, 39 times Italian champion. He has multiples world record. But for me, it's Dani, because that's how I met him. So back in the days when I was playing basketball, a few months into the season, one person from the staff come to me and was like, okay, we're going to have this new physiotherapist who's going to come and help us out, and he's blind. And I genuinely thought they were joking. I was like, are we getting a blind physiotherapist? And I was like, yeah. And then I saw him walking into the gym one day, like normally. And I was like, you see, I told you he's not blind. And I was like, he is blind. I was like, you guys are joking. And that was the first moment that I realized that it can do a lot more than I thought it could. And I love one bit that I read from his website. And then that's how I want our podcast to go today. When he talked about sports, he said like sports within his parents is the first thing that treated him as Daniele, the one that could do and that can do, as opposed as Daniele, the one who cannot see. And the amount of stuff these guys has done in his life is just mind-blowing. So I'll stop chatting. Daniele, welcome to the podcast with us. Tell us a little bit who you are, where you're from, and how's it going?
Okay, thank you, and good morning, everybody. I am Daniele Cassioli. I'm 33 years old, and I'm blind since I was born. So the beginning of my life was not that easy to accept that. And with my parents, when I was like 5 months or something, we start like turning around and visit doctors. When the doctors were over, we start from the churches. So we passed through many churches to try to come back to see. Because once you don't have something, you look for it. You don't think that you can do your way without it. But the first instinct is for us was to look for a new site. When we realized that that was not possible, because you can find someone that promises you something, that say you, okay, I promise you we can do this, we can do that. But the true thing is that there's no medicine for me, there's no surgeries or something. So we start my second life, we can say, where I start try to understand what a blind people could do. It was a learning period for us because there's no practice for being blind. There's no practice from being a parent, and also there's no practice for being a father or a mother of a blind kid. So we start this journey together, this trip together, and we realized that even if it was not that easy, because once you cannot see, it's really difficult to explain to a child. You are 6 years old or something, that you're blind and that's it. There's no, and for kids, it's always something you can say, okay, you study 1 hour more and I will give you the new video game. You will study 1 hour more and I give you some candies. So, and for blindness, there was never enough hour of studying for me to come back to see. So it was, at the beginning, was really tough to accept this. And then I realized that we have Braille, so we have a different way of writing and reading. We had a different way to understand, like, for instance, a country is, like a mountain is, like a church is, like a city is. So I start moving around on my new stuff, a blind stuff. And I realized that I was really different from others, because others could see. In my school, I had like 500 schoolmates, and I was the only one. So at the beginning, I thought I was really different from my schoolmates, for instance, and from my friends. And then I realized that even if I had something less, I could start on building up what I had more. I mean, maybe I could talk, I could think, I could touch, I could do many things more than I thought, because I was focused on what I didn't have. And there I met the sport. I start from swimming, because of water for blind person, to me, it's like an easier word, because you don't have the gravity, you don't have obstacles. It's just water, and that protects you a little bit. There's no hole, there's no steps in the water. It's like you and I mean the swimming pool, and that's it. So I start moving like that. And once I realized that swimming was really tough, because it's like many energies and many physical physical trouble, I started doing something different, and I knew the ski. I start from the snow skiing, actually.
Wow.
Blind people can ski with a guide. There's two way for blind people for snow skiing. I mean, you can ski with a guy that is for you, and he had like an high speaker, and you follow the noise that the guy do. Otherwise, the guy can be behind you. We have a radio. I ski in that way. We have a radio. I have a receiver. The guy that is a transmitter, and the guy tell me like right turn, left turn, go ahead, right turn, and left turn. And from his voice, I can understand if I have to do a narrow or a wide turn. I realized
There's a
that
lot of trust in there,
being
hey?
yeah, 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 big trust. But we can talk then about trusting, because once you're blind, you are forced to trust in others. At the beginning was really tough. At the beginning was really was something that I hate, because I thought, okay, I have to trust on him because I cannot see. But actually, I realized that through trusting in others, also people that can see, you can make relationships bigger and deeper. Because once you trust in the other can feel it and can be himself. It's once you don't trust in others that it's much more difficult to be yourself, because if you are with someone engaged, or I mean in a relationship of whatever kind, and you know that the other doesn't trust in you, it's much more difficult for you to be yourself, to to put out your values, your skills, because you're scared a bit of do something that the other don't want it. And so I was snow skiing, and I realized that be free was something that I like that much, because once you're blind, you have to hold someone else's hand. Otherwise, for instance, once you run, we have a little rope that connects you to a guide. So once you're blind, you're always in touch with others. Objects, dogs, or people. And in snow skiing, I didn't have this kind of feeling, because I felt like I was really free, because no one touched me, no one guided me apart from the voice. So I was free to move by myself. And there I discovered water skiing. And there were a person with me, that a girl that was blind. She was blind too, and she told me, "Oh, there's a crazy group of person. They're starting water skiing. There's some guys on a wheelchair. There's some guys with amputation. There are some guys that cannot walk that good. So we missed just a blind boy, and the circus can start." So and we are done. So that's why I came there, actually.
So Danny, you've touched so many points. I'm really interested and curious to dig into a lot of more. starting from where you started, right? You said, of course, like as a head start, it's not easier to start blind. It's not easy for you as a child. It's not easy for your parents. But
Yeah.
you try to make the most out of what you have, and you actually do. There's a lot of things that I would like to talk about with you. The first, as a start, is because you say you were born with it, right? So that's pretty much
Yeah.
the early condition you've always known. When was the first moment you realized that something was not as for everybody else? Like, do you have a memory of that time that you realize, okay, maybe something is a little bit different now? What can I do with this?
Yeah, I realized, but actually at the beginning, I thought that the other children had something more that I had. So at the beginning, I didn't think that I was missing something. It's strange, but it's a little different, because at the beginning I thought that the others could do something that I couldn't do, and even maybe if I practice a little bit, I could reach them. Because I realized that I cannot see, but I didn't know actually that my schoolmates, for instance, could see when I was like 3 or 4 years old. But I remember that I was like, I felt the differences between me and the others, and that's why, for instance, in my dreams, I dream that I came to school without shoes, for instance, without or maybe with a pajama, not with normal clothes. So I think that that was my way to overcome that, or maybe to realize that. Because I felt that I was at school, everything was good, but always I missed something. So and then the first time I realized that strongly was one day that I realized that I could not play soccer with my friends. I mean, I've been always playing soccer a little bit, because I love that. And in my house I have a little garden, so we spend hours and hours playing with the ball. We broke many flowers. We broke many plants, but anyway, I could do that. And once we start, once you're 6 years old or 7 years old, immediately you start practicing a little bit, or playing football a little bit in a team. So in a team with others, and that's the first moment I really was disappointed, because I could not see, because to me it was not possible to go there. I could play with them in a garden. I could play with them, for instance, at the school break, but I couldn't play with them in a normal team. So then I realized that I was not normal, or maybe I was not part of the normal people, and that was the first big step to overcome, because it was the first time that because of my blindness, I couldn't do something.
That's a that's a really interesting things that you just said and you just brought up. Right soon when you started to talk about dreaming about going to school with no shoes or with like the wrong clothes, I was talking with Nick right before this live chat, and I was talking to him. I don't know if you remember the season that we've been together. At some point, one of our teammates, Cristiano, he lost his father, so we had to go for the funeral. And I was telling Nick, like the rule for the company for our team, it was everyone would have to go with a black sweatshirt, and you rock up with a red one, and we were like, Danny, what the fuck? And you were like, well, color is not really a thing for me. and I remember that like really clearly when that thing happened, and it really made me think. We had few conversations few times about like. Because as you said, like you always tend to need to rely on someone, but I've always seen in yourself like the willingness of being really independent as much as you could. For instance, you said like when you miss something, you tend to develop something else. And here there's another things that you've done. There's one thing in Italy, in Milano, is called Dialogue in the Darkness. It's basically, it's different rooms with different scenery. So one room recreates what a city looks like. One room recreates what a park looks like. One room recreates like another sort of environment until you get to the last room, which is like a cocktail area where everyone sits down. And what they do is run by people like visually impaired, and they get you in a group of 10 people. Daniele was also part of something like that, if I'm not wrong. They get you into a group of 10, and you have to learn how to trust your guide, because they give you a stick, everything is completely dark, and you have no idea where you're going. It's pitch black. For us, is really strange, because for us, you actually imagine that the room that recreates a park to be actually as big as a park. Those guys know that it's not like that. They know that it's a lot smaller. And so they take you through the life of a blind person. And you start to understand this concept of trusting somebody a lot more. And we've recreated that through like different dinners and different stuff, in which I had the opportunity to talk to Danny. And the conversation, like, if you want to talk to us a little bit about these things, you remember, like, we talked about a few times on how do you know you like somebody? How do you use an iPhone? Which is something that blew my mind when I saw you doing that. You know, like all those small things that we take for granted, like it came for you, like the understanding and the knowledge of those things came through a different way. If you want to chat us a little bit about that, like how you discover like relationships and stuff, or even just using an iPhone, how does that for you?
The iPhone has blown Ricky's mind. He was telling me before.
Oh, mate,
I know he really wants to talk about it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm starting from the dialogue in the darkness that you were talking about. I think that in that kind of situation, you realize how, sight or seeing, it's really a big skill, of course. Otherwise, a god, or the superior creator we trust in, would never give us you. I'm not in that kind of group, but it never give you the sight or eyes. So, of course, seeing it's a big, it's really, really useful. But sometimes once you can see something, you think maybe sometimes you already know that. And this is a big difference. I don't want to say that being blind is cooler, because there's many things that are much more difficult, obviously. But of course, once you are blind, you are forced to get into the situation. You cannot see a situation from 1 meter, 2 meters, 100 meters, or from a video. So this is I think a big turning point, because doing experience for us, it's the best way to understand. And sometimes for little kids, but also for for adults, for the guys, sometimes we think that we can understand the situation just by looking at taking a look at that. So that's why it's really, really weird, the dialogue in the darkness, because you realize that once you cannot see, you always have to go in the situation. If you feel a noise, to realize what it is, you can go toward that. If you feel something strange, or if you smell something, you have to go and find it. So every kind of situation, it's a situation that you have to live in. That's why, for instance, blind people, sometimes they tell me, oh, you can hear much more than us, you can smell much more than I can. It's true a little bit, but for instance, now I'm in Gallarate, that is like 30 minutes driving from Milan. And it's not true that I can hear the Milan people talking in the center of the city. It's not true that I can hear a person that are at 20 kilometers from me. But it's true that I'm much more trained on listening. I'm much more trained on smelling. So the difference is that once I hear something, a noise or something like that, I try to understand something more about the environment around me, about people I have in front of me, about the situation that I am in. So that's the difference. Sometimes you hear some noise, you hear something, and you don't even focus on that, because you can see, so you think that you don't need it. and sometimes it's true, but sometimes feeling other kind of a sensation, other kind of feeling can help us to understand much more what we have around us. And that's I think and the best skill that blindness gave to me. And this is the same for knowing people, because when you get in a relationship with a person, you think that the most important thing is to look at him, look at her, and see her, see him, see how his body is, see how his face is, see many things. But it's also true that a person has a big energy around her, around him. So and this energy is not something that you can only see, but it's something you can feel. And a person, you can know it by the way he talk, by the way he discuss, by the way he used the touching. And this is a big point, I think, because for instance, before coming out from home, we have a mirror. You have a mirror. I don't have it. But you have a mirror, and you look at yourself. You choose how you want the other people to see you. I mean, you choose the clothes. You choose how your mustache can be, how your hair must be, and so on. So we sometimes we know a lot of that. Sometimes we are not that in consciousness about our aspect, but it's true that we choose how we want to see by the others. And it's true that we don't choose how to hug them, how to keep in contact with them, touching them, and so on. So this kind of channel, it's more, I think that it's so you don't think that much on it, but it's much more natural, it's much more easy. And so that's why you can know people much more, even from other characters, other things. And that's why I think that being blind, it's not that easy, because it's true that you cannot see things, but it's also true that it's much more easier to feel them. Because as you cannot see, you're forced to find some other aspects to understand who is in front of you, or in which kind of environment you are. And this, I think that this is a thing that you can train with experience. That's why it's important for blind people to make experience, to come out from home, to even sometimes to fall down, but I mean to live in the outside world, because you can learn a lot from that.
That's a crazy valid good point that you just brought up. Like so basically, when Nick and I decided to start to invite guests, as soon as we decided, like, let's invite people that are like cool, that have stories to say, I was like, wait, I got one, and you're the first one, of course, that is coming in as a guest in these terms, because exactly what you told now. So like Danny and I, we haven't seen each other for a long time, because I've been abroad, he's been busy and everything. But that year we spent together, it happened a few times that he organized some dinner in the dark for our basketball team with another volleyball team. And you arrive to the dinner, it's like in a hotel, it's completely dark. You don't know who's going to be at the dinner. You sit down randomly. You might be sitting next to people that you would normally not choose to be seated next to. And so it happens to those dinners, like everything is different. So you taste the food differently. You have to figure out, first of all, where the plate is, because it's really dark. So you don't even know where your plate is or what your food is like. But one thing that really stayed with me, I remember at the end of the dinner, once we walked out the hotel, I saw who I was sitting next to. And I was like, I would probably not pick you. Because, we really tend to like see people for us and choose who you want to sit next to, or how close you're going to get to somebody or whatever. And when that got took out of us, you just sit next to anyone and you just start to talk to that person. And as you see, like the vibe is not something that you can see from somebody, but it's something that you can feel. And as you said, it's not that you have super sense, it's that you focus more on other things as just see something and judge it. And this stayed with me so hard that my actual girlfriend, like when I first met her, was through social media. And the first time she came to visit me, I was like, I didn't manage because the place was closed, but it was like my first date. I want to take her. I saw this place in Dubai that would make like dinner in the dark, to experience the food differently and to focus on what you eat and how it tastes, as opposed to just like look at each other and stuff. I was like, well, I want to take her into this dark room just because if I cannot see her and it's nothing that it can goes through like, seeing each other and physical, and it all has to go through like, talking and emotions and vibes, I can probably understand better if it's something that is good for me or not. And so all the things that you brought up now about like trying, do things, maybe you fall a few times, maybe you find the wrong person, maybe you find the right one, but not just base it on the way it looks, but actually dig a little bit deeper in. It's something that even though we had like 3-4 dinners like that, really stayed with me for all these years.
I think listening to that, it seems to me, Danny, like your mindfulness is turned up to 15 out of 10. Like having to try and think about, categorizing noises, where people are sitting, like getting a sense for people's character. It's a really good reminder. I mean, I think obviously we all take things for granted, but just that mindfulness of like in every action that we're doing, and the people we're talking to, like really just listening properly. And I think this is great for me because I've literally just been sitting here listening, and normally I always talk over the top of Ricky, try and get all my points in before he can. But this has been great so far because I find this so fascinating. The fact that you have focused on everything that you can do, and enhancing that. In terms of multiple world titles in a sport which is crazy for me to think about, because I have most of my senses other than common sense, and I think I can't even fathom.
Now we've been talking about. Sorry, Danny, tell me.
No. This is a big point, I think, because I would like just to tell you that the first thing I learned, not the first thing, but I think the best one I learned from being blind, because this is like a big way I had to walk around. Because it's not something that I was born and I was telling myself, okay, I'm happy because I can focus on this, and okay, it's cool being blind and so on. So I passed through many difficult, emotion and thinking. So, but the great thing I think is that how the environment around me guides myself on doing things or on being someone, and how the inner part of me, the inside of me, guide me to be what I want to be. That's I think it's the talking about the psychological aspects is the biggest thing, because an interesting thing is that once we are in a situation, the first things we do is to see others and understand how we can move, if our clothes are okay, if our way of staying, if our vibe is the same of the party or of the environment around me. It's true that before we decide who we want to be in a situation, we start looking around us. We start from that. Imagine a situation where you have to go to the office and you open a door, and before start laughing or being serious, before start with a high five to your colleagues or staying, in your place and not talking with others, you see what's around you. So that's a good point, because the big question is, I react in a way, I am this kind of people, but which part guide me more? The part outside of me, the environment around me, or the inside of me? So what's in my mind? Nikki, we're talking about mindfulness, and this is the big question, and maybe we built a big answer, because the first thing is like to be aware of yourself, of your feelings, of your mind. And this is the best way to me to overcome this problem, starting obviously, as you taught, from the mindfulness, from the be aware of yourself, not of others.
It's good, eh?
It's terrific. I mean, it's what you just said about how if we were in a normal working situation, if I wasn't just working behind my laptop back in the days when I worked in an office, you walk in and you read the room, you read the temperature of the room, and it's like, all right, so how do I react in this situation to fit in with this crowd of people in the room? Or I think what you're saying is like that in every situation, I guess you are very authentically you.
Yeah, that's true.
So I now wanna, with you, Danny, to dig in a little bit more about all the things that you have done, because I know a little bit of it, and I was talking with Nick a little bit earlier, and I was like, listen, this guy has just picked all the things that nature told him you can't do it, and he did it. He started to like water ski, he started to publish book. I saw him on the Italian television. And then what else? Now you're playing soccer. Then you did the world record with a car. I'm like, literally, whatever nature told him, like, I'm not going to let you do that. He was like, you know what? Fuck it, I will anyway. So tell us a little bit, like, how all these things come to your mind. How's your training looks like, how your season looks like, who's helping you. A little bit more of about water ski. I would like to know that as well, like how the race work, because it's a sport that I'm not really familiar with. So, mate, Mike is on you. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Bob was really kind, because was really ridiculous once we started, because as I told you before, at the beginning was like a wired group, a broken group. I mean, everyone has a problem, so we had and that was the place when I learned how to change, for instance, a wheel of a wheelchair, how to change a prosthesis for how to put a new leg to a friend of mine, how to to do many things for a person that they don't have arms, for instance. So I learned how to help them to put the clothes on and so on. So that's the great point there, was that we were a group, but we were the disabled group, a person with handicap. So at the beginning, we didn't have that culture that now we have. Now we talk about Paralympic sport, about Paralympic games, about everything. It's cooler, everything. It's inspiring. But at the beginning, a blind person doing sport was not at all inspiring. It was something that it was better to hide or not see anyway. So when I was ready on the dock for starting for a set of water ski, it was not something like, okay, we go there and see what he can do, and let's make some picture or make some video, because we can share it with others. And so now it's like something like that. But at the beginning was something like, oh my God, there's a blind person ready on the dock and you want to ski. So at the beginning was like that. So the culture changed a lot, and I think that helped me to understand that it's up to us at the beginning, because at the beginning I thought that everyone around me was like bad people, because they didn't believe in blind person to improve their style, to improve their technique for perform better. But then we changed our coach, and we had a coach that the first chat we have together. He started talking to me and tell me, okay, I don't care if you're blind or not. I have to train you. We have to practice together. And if you do something that I don't like, if you do some bullshit, I have to say you. I have to do what you have to do better, what you can do better. And just in that way, we can improve. And even if it's something that is, it's something that is clear. I'm not telling a big secret to athletes, but for us was not so was not that used, because at the beginning the culture was to say, okay, he's blind, he's able to ski with 2 skis, and okay, come on, that's it, that's okay, that's already a good thing. So that changed my mind on all the stuff, all the things I started doing, because I realized that sometimes people start talking about, okay, no, you're blind, that thing you cannot do, or no, it's dangerous. No, it's better you don't do that. It's better because of that, because of this, because of those. So people start talking about something from the things you cannot do. But they don't know actually, because they've never maybe seen it, because they've never studied it, they've never seen other blind people doing sport, I don't know. But they don't realize that passing through the practicing, passing through the experiences, passing through big hours on working hard, you can reach some points even if you cannot see. And I start with water skiing.
Is it true that you also beat some people that actually can't see? Like,
sorry, say it again.
Is it right or wrong that you actually on water ski, you have actually competed against people who can see and you beat them?
Yeah, sometimes I did it. In slalom, because we have three different disciplines. We have slalom, trick, and jumps. This is, I mean, in slalom, I'm quite similar from the others. And I was also able to, because in slalom, you have to turn around the buoys. You have 6 buoys in the water, over the water, and you have to turn around them. I mean, person that can see, turn around them, and person that cannot see, beat them, bring them. So we have a device. We have a device that has an alarm. You arm it, and you start doing your movement. And I mean, the alarm tell you that you have like an alert or something that make a noise, and once you hear the noise, you do the turn. So we ski in that way. The boat come out at 58 k per hour, and you have to turn around these buoys. Once the line is shorter, the slalom course, so the 6 buoys become much more difficult, because you have to turn almost besides to the boat that I'll lead you. So this is the difficulties. And in slalom, I'm not that far from the person that can see, from the professionist water skier. In tricks and in jump, it's much more difficult, because in tricks I start not so early to do it, because as always they thought that blind people could not do that. So at the beginning, no one was able, or no one wanted to teach me how to trick. And then the last one, I start with jumping. I have a guide on jump. So we have 2 ropes at the same boat. The boat passed beside the ramp. The guide passed beside the ramp and tell me, okay, 3, 2, 1, and go. And once he tell me 3, 2, 1, I cut through the ramp. And then once he tell me, okay, now you're ready, I pass through the ramp. And I can jump like 20 meters, 21 meters. This is the longest distance I did was in Cincinnati, was 21 meters and 10 centimeters.
That's a world record, right?
Yeah, this is a world record.
It's the casual world record.
It's crazy.
And it was crazy, because it was great, because for instance, in that, I mean, person that can see is jump like also 70 meters, but I've never seen a person that can see trying to jump without seeing, with goggles or with a mask or with something. So I don't actually know if if someone of them want to try this.
Well, that could be something you can launch out. It's like, all right, guys, let's try.
It's a challenge,
let's fight. Like, and all I'm thinking is like, because like our audience is probably mainly people that goes through around CrossFit gym. So I'm trying to think, for me, like sometimes we try to do like some exercise in synchro, like a few burpees or a few thrusters, and these are pretty basic stuff, and we still manage to fuck that up. So I'm like, imagine the level of coordination and work and trust that has to be one guy on a boat telling on a guy on a ski in the water when it's time to jump in the dark. That's just something that blows my mind.
The thing like straight away that I thought of then, because I think like Ricky and I, we both come at a lot of these things from the angle of being a coach. And so when we coach, say, gymnastics or body weight movement in the gym, I always tell people that whether it's weightlifting or gymnastics, it's about where your body is in relation to an object or in relation to space. And some people just don't have that coordination of, hey, if my head is back behind the bar, where do my feet need to be in relation? And I'm thinking that your body awareness must be off the chart.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, because sometimes, not sometimes, but almost always we actually don't know ourselves. That's what blindness forced me to do, to know myself in a mind way, in a mind mood, I mean, and in a physical one. Because once you know where you are, once you know how you have to move, you can do things better. And I think that mind and body are, obviously they are parallel. They are not the same thing, but they're always in a big relationship between them. So I think that this is a good point. Starting the blindness forced me to start from myself. It doesn't mean that I hate others or I don't want others or something like that, but I start and realize that if I am the best version of myself, the best in the best way I can do, that will help myself in relationship with others. And this is a mind set. This is a mind focus, but also a physical one. Because, for instance, in water ski, I cannot see, but also in snow skiing, for instance, you cannot see bumpies, you cannot see how the hill is, so how the mountain goes down. But you can only focus on your way of skiing, on your technique, on your way of doing things. And this is I learned it from touching others. I mean, they stop in a position, they start doing slowly a movement, and I touched them, so I could realize how was that movement, how was that position. And also they start touching me. So they start touching me. Okay, you have to bend more your knees, you have to bend more your ankle, you have to stay with the hips over the skis and so on, touching my body. And so that was the way I realized to understand where my body was. And this is, I think, a great suggestion also for people that do like CrossFit or exercises like that, because it's a great starting point. Because sometimes we want to pass over, we want to go to the next step, even if we are not the right owner of our body. And I think that the best way to do things in mindset and in physical one, it's like to really have maybe it costs you to wait a little bit more. Maybe you will wait a little bit more to go to the next step, but have being aware of our body. It's really, really a big point for exercising, for everything, for staying with a girl, for I don't know, for many things. The being aware of our body, it helped me a lot, because it's the only thing that I could do. I cannot control other things. I cannot see outside obstacles or things outside from myself. So that's why I came back and focus on my body, my mind, so my inside.
I think I'm going to cut the audio of the things you just said, and then I'm going to play it on repeat on every gym I'll ever coach in, just so everyone listens to
they
this.
Will hate me.
This little clip is getting
so
sent out
true
to all my clients next week.
This is so true, man. Like when you were talking now about like the way you learn, like for us, you know, like visual, verbal, and tactile cues, the way for us to deliver information to our clients. And of course, the visual one is the most immediate. It's like, look at this, try to do that. But when that doesn't work, then of course you have to move on like different sort of cues. And as you said, like some things might take a little bit more of time, but you have to spend that time if you actually want to get things done right. And I will never thank you enough for saying that. I really hope everyone is listening to this right now. And
thank you. I hope so.
and that is something, yeah, that Nick and I, we were just like smiling at each other when we were talking about this, because it was like it's something we both believe on. So
yeah, this is a great
this is
point also for sport. You know better than me, because also when you play basketball, you do, okay, you can focus on your opposite, you can focus on the team you're playing against too, but it's really true that if you're not okay with yourself, I would say in a deep relationship, everything will be much more difficult.
yeah, that's 100%. Like that's a valuable lesson that most of the time we underestimate, or we don't really remind to ourselves. We like tend to blame like other circumstances other than ourselves for a lot of the things that go on into our lives, and like be a little bit more accountable, or like actually keep ourselves, like the reason why things don't work the way I would like to is not because of others, it's because of me. It's because I'm not doing the things that I should be doing to make things work the way I would.
Pretty relevant right now too, I think. Where I think most of us are in situations where we maybe can't control our movements, or they've shut down the gyms. It's when you talk about, having that mindset of controlling yourself first, and controlling what you can control. One of my favorite quotes is from a book called The Daily Stoic, which is kind of like a philosophy book about how to deal with life. And it just says, control what you can and then cope with what you can't, because you probably can't fix it. You fix the things in your control, and then everything else that's not in your control, you just have to deal with it.
That is absolutely
and also
true.
And also it's true that when you practice it, the interesting things that I think to also people that do any kind of sport, it's that even if you think sometimes that you it's not that much what you can control, you always become someone else. Once you focus on this, maybe today it's now we are in April and you can control like that, but in May you will be another one. So if you practice on that, if you focus on that, and then your body, yourself will be answer, will be find new instruments to make you much more consciousness of your body, much more in control. You will control much more things. So this is the great enemy of a practice, of the section of training.
Pretty good.
Sorry, I thought you were going to jump in, Ricky. I was waiting for you to talk.
No, I was waiting for you to come in, but it's I don't know, like the thing that stays with me a lot out of this talk is that you probably heard this word or something similar a few times before, but then not everyone really acts upon it. Like for him, like say all these things and what he has done, you actually like, all right, he's not just preaching, he's not just trying to make a cool Instagram post, he's not just trying to send out a few cool quotes. He's preaching things that he has been doing his whole life. And I think that's also says a lot, because it's really easy to say all those things, but then you don't always necessarily follow up on them. And like seeing you, like all the things you have achieved and talking about this is literally like, well, he actually did it. Because if we look at the things that you have done and the way you talk about all this, it's not like, it's like those mentor gurus that you find online that just preach stuff, but then at the end don't do much about it. It's like, well, this shows you that if you actually do things the way they're supposed to be done, regardless of what nature gave you in the first place, you have the possibility to do something great. And when I was like getting through this conversation with you, I went through, of course, like all the things you've done and everything. And I was like, this guy, you graduated in physiotherapy with 110 and the academic KISS, which means you did an excellent job. And I went through a little bit, like a little bit through your life and a little bit of the things that you've done. And I remember this. How come you woke up one day and you decide, you know what, I'm going to do 10 laps on a car and I'm going to set a world record and I get into that book? How did that came to? Like, this is another part of Daniele. Like, you know, he's on a world record book for the fastest lap on a car, and he can't see. So how did that happen?
It's a long way. There was a long way on my mind, because once I had 18 years old in Italy, well, it's not 16, but once you're 18, you can reach the driving license. And as I did not, I suffer a lot of that. It was really a drama for me, because I thought that, okay, as I'm blind, I cannot have that fucking driving license. And not because I'm stupid, not because I cannot drive, not because I'm not able, but just because I cannot see. So it's not something I can practice on. It's not something I can work on. And that's why I start stressing my friends and saying them, okay, come on, let me drive a little bit. This is a big parking. No one. For instance, we went to a supermarket when the supermarket was closed, and I keep on talking. Okay, I keep on telling. Okay, come on, now that the parking is empty. There's no one. Police cannot bring us, and so on. So come on, yeah, at least 100 meters. But I want to drive. I want to hold the wheel. I want to understand what's the feeling about driving. And we start from that, and then I start thinking that, okay, it's good driving a little bit, but I've never go that fast. So I've never passed, 10 kilometers per hour. I've never make a big turn on the right or on the left, and so on. So I found another crazy boy that is a man that have a driving license school. I don't know how do you call it in English, but it's a teacher for getting to the driving license. And he had a car for that kind of practice. So I had the wheels, and I had the stuff for my foot to accelerate and to stop, and he had just the foot on that stuff too. So we start practicing a little bit, and we realized that with a particular way of talking. So he, according to starting from the words that he could talk to me, I made a big turn, a wide turn, a narrow turn. I stop, or I go back. His voice and his way seeing the circuit to make that kind of way with the car, just me, myself, and I. So it was a big practice. But at the beginning, not for me, but for him, because guys, we're talking about me, but also sit down and go inside a car, and you know that who is driving that car is a blind person. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
I can't even sit in the passenger seat of a taxi. I am terrible.
Yeah. So yeah, you can fasten your seatbelt, you can do whatever, but so it's always a blind person that is driving that fucking car. So the beginning was not that easy. But then we realized that we can do something really good, because even there is the really big importance of relationships with person. Because okay, maybe I'm a smart boy. Maybe he was a smart guy too. Maybe we were a good couple together. But it's also true that without the big relationship, it's really, really difficult to do what we did. So starting from the driving license, we had to building up a great relationship between us, and that's why it was possible.
Yeah, that's something that always blew my mind. He was like, yeah, you know what? I have a world record for driving a car into a circuit. I was like, you joking? And he was telling me that while telling me that he was also DJing. And I was like, oh, come on, Danny, like, stop it. So yeah, all these things, like, it really blew my mind all the time. And like, we've been chatting for quite some times. As we go more like to recent times, you wrote a book, right? not much ago.
Yeah.
Well,
I
tell us
read
a
that,
little bit about it.
yeah, I read that book. Unfortunately, we didn't or we didn't already translate it in English and in other languages, but we're working on it. It's an autobiographic romance. So I was talking about at the beginning of the idea was to talk about blindness. So maybe also the title of the book, I was thinking about something like, okay, that's why I'm blind, or maybe I cannot see and you guys can, so something like that. And then writing my story, obviously I was talking about my problems, I was talking about my difficulties, I was talking about my handicap, if you want. But now we start with the editor, with the person that helped me on building the book, to talk about problem in general. In English, we can translate the title like "Wind Against You," "Wind Against." That it means that it's something that attempts to stop yourself. But I mean that the most important thing is that we stop to think about telling something about blindness in the title. We didn't want to give a name to a problem, because every one of us can have a problem, and it's not true that as I'm blind I have more problem than that person that can see, because if you can see you can also have other problems. You maybe you lose your work, your job, you lose your, I mean, you have to change your mind and change your city because of the job, because maybe you stop a big relationship with a girlfriend. So it's never true that my problem is bigger than others. Every problem can be bigger or smaller. But it depends on the name we want to put on it, the name you want to give to a problem. That's why we start talking about the win against you, because the solution is not in the name of the problem, but is in the name of the strategies, in the strategies you want to use to overcome the problem. That's why we start talking about win against, and not about blindness or darkness or being blind, or difficulties of not have sight. And in this book, I talk about a lot of competitions, a lot of tournaments, water ski, starting from a tournament that I lost. Because I mean, also for, I think that also for a young person, as this book is also sometimes in the schools, there's a lot of teenagers that wrote it. And I decided to start from the things I did wrong, not from the titles I won, because it's I want to tell to the kids, to the children, to the guys, and also to everybody of us that to build a winning, to build a gold medal, you have to lose many times, and you don't give it a shit about losing if the plan is to win. I mean, it doesn't matter if you lose also 10 times, because the most important thing is the rooftop. I mean, if the last floor of your way, of your walking, of your circuit, that is important. So that's why I start from talking about loss, and then my bad competition. Then I talk also about my relationship with my parents, because my parents was one of my best luck in my life. I was really lucky to have this great family, because I talk a lot with my parents. I share problem with them. I share my sadness for being blind. I share my trouble. I share my mind with them. And also a big point is the relationship with girls. Because even if I was a water ski world championship, even if I was a physical therapist, even if I was this, I was that, there's sometimes it happens to me that girls told me, okay, I'm sorry, maybe I love you, you are one of the best person I've never seen in my life, but as you cannot see, maybe I'm not ready to spend my life with a blind person. And so I was happy to talk about this, because it's something that at the beginning I was really angry with a kind of girl, but then I start to understand them, Maybe I don't agree with that, obviously, because I think that even if I'm blind, I'm not less than comparing to my colleagues, my houseband colleagues that can see. So, but at the beginning was so I decided to talk about this in my book because sometimes we want to prejudge the reality in the way we choose our life is not guided from our inside but from the rules of the society. So that's why I want to talk a little bit about this aspect of a girlfriend, because sometimes it's like something, okay, I won't tell you anything about this, I won't tell you anything about that, but actually I want to be clear with the person that want to read my story, read my book. So that was the three biggest point I talked. But in that book, there's many other, things, many other aspects of my life, the relationship with my friends, the relationship in my schools with my schoolmates, the sport, other sports I did, the things I do with blind children. So many things.
That's great. It really, like what you're talking now about your book, it really kind of sums up our conversation as it goes to where we pretty much started on how if we stayed in the dark, we would choose and value people differently. So how to like maybe, we can focus on a lot of other things than what we actually just say, and that there's a lot more behind that. And I want to open like a little thing about his parents. I met them. They're awesome. Like his dad, he drives a helicopter. Like no one's in that family. Everyone is a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have met both of them. They're like awesome human being. And when you talk at the end a little bit about helping kids, I also know that you recently started like an association about that, right?
Yeah, yes, because I think that I would like to inspire them, but also I would like to avoid that things that happened to me when I was a kid happen to them. For instance, the sport at the beginning, as I told you, once I was on the dock, person say, "Oh my God, there's a blind person coming out. He want to ski. What the fuck is that?" So, a person was really scared about blind people do things, and I would like that, as I've already done it, I would like to use my experience to help them to start from a higher point, a newer point. I don't know how to say, but a point that is already something that a bit I push a little bit further. That's what I would like to do. So that's what we do with them, because sometimes once you have a kid, like a blind kid, like a parent, you are not that happy, because it's true. When we buy a car, if you go to get your car and you see that the car, I don't know, the car doesn't have the windows, you wanna give it back and you want another one. So it's true that when we buy things, we want the perfect thing. So we check if it's a new one, we check if it's perfect, we check if no one used it before, and so on. Obviously, with the kids, you can with a kid you cannot give it back. But it's true that our mindset start to get in trouble sometimes if we have a kid that is not perfect, that is not as we expected. So we need to make a deep work with parents, because if you start to being sad, if you start to refuse that situation, you will refuse your kid. You will not give it joy. You will not give him happiness. You will not give him smiles. You will not give many things. So the things I would like to do, passing through my experience, using my experience, my knowledge, and the way I did till now, to help them to come out from home, to smile, to make sport, to share experiences, because sometimes you feel like you're alone, but there's many people there suffering as you are suffering for a problem. So once you realize that you're not alone, it's already a step forward. It's already something you do for being better. And so that's what we do with our association. We do many sports, we do many experiences, we do summer camps, we do snow camps, we do many things to force them to come out from home, to force them to share their experiences with others, and also to build experiences for a kid, because once they come back to school, if they spend their time at home, they will not have things to tell to other, for instance, schoolmate. What can they talk about if they don't leave, if if they stay in their home for the whole days? They have not arguments, they're not things to tell others. So it's also a way to give them experiences that they can spend with others to build a new relationships.
I was about to ask you if you had anything to leave us with, like any suggestion or any tips, but like you just cut me off with this, because I think this is like it's a great ending to pretty much our show. It really sums up what Daniele is and what he's been doing through his whole life. Like, I don't know, do you, Nick, want to add something about it?
Yeah, I mean, like listening to that and talking about, trying to help the next generation as well. There's a phrase in English, and I'll probably murder it, which is bad because it is my first language, about we stand on the shoulders of our forefathers. And so each generation, hopefully, progresses a little bit further. And I think, what you've done so far, because I'm sure there's a lot more to come, but what you've done so far in terms of participation in sport, your life, your work, you've really, really progressed for everyone that might be in the same situation or similar situation. So I just wanted to say that I've actually been really inspired, and at the same time a little bit deflated that I've lost a lot of my excuses for not doing things.
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm really happy.
It was a great conversation, and I think that's the reason why, as soon as we decided to start to bring athletes or personality into this podcast, when Nick and I talked, I was like, listen, I think I got the right guy from Italy. Like, let me see if he's gonna pick up on the phone. And that's the reason why, because like every conversation that I had with Dani, some people recharge you when you talk to. Some people you leave the conversation feeling like completely empty. Dani's one of those people that I think recharge you, right? You finish a conversation with him and feel like, fuck, I'm going to do something about it now.
I'm ready to go.
And I think, I have to go training now.
Really
I'm so excited. Like, when you leave a conversation like this, it's like, all right, this was a good hour of talk. And I hope it's going to touch as many people as possible. I think this is one of those talks that, a lot of people will benefit from. So I'm deeply thankful that you found 1 hour to chit chat with us a little bit about everything.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure, and I thank you guys for your, cooperation, for calling me. It was really happy to me also because it's like a way to make culture in the sport. So right now, people that can listen this podcast know that blind person can do sport, and know if you can find me also on Facebook, on Instagram, Daniele Cassioli. So it's an easy name, and you can find many things, and you can write me if you know blind people, if you know person that are interested in doing sport. You can write me on Facebook, on Instagram, or wherever, and I will be happy to answer and to help you, because once you become a bigger community, we will have much more stories, and every story can inspire ourselves more than without stories.
That's great. We're going to share all your contacts. So guys, if you need any
help, we'll make sure we put all these links up in the description. So this will be on Spotify and iTunes. And we'll make sure we put Instagram, Facebook details too, because the more people that hear this and the more people that get in touch, I think the better.
That's great.
Well, that's it for today, folks.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. Very much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Danny.
You guys stay safe.
And on to the next one. All right. We can stop the recording.